First of all, they're looking at 2,100 parking spaces across the street over at the fairgrounds. The original plan showed the 2,100 parking spaces on the property itself. So from a traffic standpoint alone, just getting all the turning movements when you have a parking structure across the street doesn't work very well. Also on this corner here, they were looking at a 4-story hotel, which backed right up to the College Park residents and literally looked into their backyard. I since had that meeting, met with Dennis Harkins, and we're working on making sure that we have the facilities we need here at the school, but it doesn't impact the community as much. This school's at about 22,000 students, it's only about 29,000 students. That's all good for us. Let's see if we can work together and make sure it stays on the campus and doesn't go off the campus. Remember, the city council has no vote on how they do things on state property, and the school here and the fairgrounds are state property.
Jay, what do you think about this issue?
Well, in the process, it's nice to have the city start to take notice, but the college itself had 3 meetings, of which 2 of those meetings were fairly well attended, and I've been assured by the Board of Trustees for the Orange Coast Colleges that in fact they've heard the neighborhood. They've actually heard those folks, and they're rethinking how they're going to do that. How they get that done, I'm not sure, but they have already heard it, they've made comments, and they've actually made comments to the community.
Can we just comment real quick? It's great they say that now, but they just filed an EIR, an impact report, which just recently showed the parking structures there. So when they say, well, we're going to change it, then why'd you file those documents? That's the only issue.
And the only thing they told me is they haven't heard anything from the city except for a response to that EIR, which is about the traffic issues, not about the densities, not about the different construction, but just about the traffic issues. So they haven't heard anybody else.
Well, a couple things. Number one, we have never, ever put one more unit on a property than it's been zoned for. Period. We've never done that. The zoning that's been in place has been in place for years. The person who's missing here, Katrina Foley, who voted for and put the West Side Overlay Plan over the whole West Side. She did that. And that plan is just what we're doing, following now. Variances for all sorts of odd-shaped lots of issues that they have that have been happening in the city for 60 years. That's nothing really new at all, but just making sure to do it. I do believe, I believe in private property rights, and I believe if the person has a property zone for a 4-plex, we should just go in there and say, well, we're going to make it a 3-plex. If we're zoned for 4, they should be able to build 4. But I've said to my colleagues on the council, if you want to downzone, just downzone. Okay, which was across from Santa Ana. There are 6,000 square foot lots that were previously higher, that Newport Beach took in and brought them to 6,000. It's not unusual that that happens.
Well, you know, what's really
6,000 square foot lots is the hardwood standard in our city. It's what everybody has. Why don't we give time?
about development, it's really about the annexation. It's interesting to note that this developer has actually been in conversation with the city for over 2 years about this development that he wants on that land before the city has annexed it. He has a plan in place that requires the lots to be 6,000 square feet, as opposed to a plan in place that meets with the neighborhood circumstance of 7,200 square feet. I find it interesting to note that what our council has done is approved the change from 7,200 square feet, what it is under the county, to 6,000 square feet to satisfy the needs of the developer who said that in council that he needed 6,000 square feet to make it work.
Well, let's change up the conversation.
A lot of mileage here. I do think it's fair to put it to the city mayor in terms of something that by most accounts seems to have been a bit of a disaster. Hundreds of thousands of dollars over budget, poorly attended. I read the other day in the Daily Pilot that the man in charge, the person that was put on leave, again, an issue of accountability, was just paid out $170,000 by the city. As far as I know, you voted for that settlement. So my question is, you guys, your new city council, to the majority, came on arguing that city should be run like a business. You stamped CEO on the top of the city manager and called him Bruce CEO. Said he should be able to run this place with a much more network of outsourcing and, be a little bit more nimble. And yet in your first outing, on that track, he went right off into the guardrail and, hundreds of thousands of dollars over. What I'm curious is, what's your sense of what went wrong? And do you agree with the person who, I guess, did something wrong, Mr. Joyce, being paid out $170,000? And why is that man being paid $170,000 if he ultimately failed and,
Okay, well, there's like a dozen questions here.
Darren,
Let's go for the basics on there. First of all, Mr. Joyce and the city council, as a 5-0 vote, voted to do the settlement. The issues that happened beyond that, the reasons why that settlement was done.
But do you
I don't
agree
think-
with that?
Do I agree with it?
You voted for it.
I would say that I'm not going to get into a personnel issue, but in government,
So there's no accountability.
in government, I'm telling you, to lay off to fire personnel. I mean, we had a police officer having sex on the job night after night after night for a month.
If you can't speak to Joyce, then don't speak to him. But don't tell me about 100 other things.
Anyone, when it's a 5-0 vote to do that. Because
I'm not asking about the 4 other members. I'm asking about you.
Right, it was a 5-0 vote. All 5 voted for that. And I agree that the liability the city had under that. In that context, let's talk about what happened.
What did the city do wrong that meant that you had to pay somebody $170,000 of what some people call hush money?
There's nothing in the agreement that says he can't talk to anybody.
Is he talking? Is he sitting down and doing interviews with
He can
people?
talk to anybody. Can I finish?
Sure.
Here's the point. The point of it is that we have a system in place in the city. It takes 4 signatures for a check to be drawn. What I said from day one, why is it one person's being attacked and 4 signatures was done? Another employee who was the head of our finance, when there's a $35,000 budget for entertainment, in one day signed off $85,000 for entertainment. That was never approved by the council. That should have never have gone through. So the reality was, if it was run properly, like it was supposed to be run, the system in place wasn't run. It didn't happen that way.
But isn't that the problem of, in some ways, you wanted to move the city to a faster,
that is
a
a
faster procurement system by privatizing, by doing other things. And again, the first one, you're talking about your own policies, not law.
Sir. The procurement system of the city was not followed. Period. That's what happened. So to go ahead and blame a bunch of people, he was the attack dog, and they attacked him. They went after him.
Who, Joyce?
Joyce completely went after him and said it was all his problems if he was the only one that was there. 4 signatures signed on that.
So you think basically he was unfairly maligned and it's fair to pay him $170,000?
I'm not going to get into that issue.
Jay,
Jay, you were on that committee as well, so I'd like to hear your take on that as well.
what went wrong, Jay? In your opinion?
I wasn't on the committee, in reality, but having said all that, the truth of the matter is that it's a mismanagement process. No matter how you cut the mustard, it's a mismanagement process.
Yeah.
And what bothers me more than anything else is we can't get the city to just give us an audit that we can actually look at and evaluate. We're somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million into a 3-day party that people didn't come to. And I'm trying to figure out why we're spending that kind of money when we're supposed to be fiscally responsible. One of the things that bothers me is we're spending $1 million on a party and we have fire stations that are falling apart. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me.
We haven't heard from Alan.